right, we're officially recording. Welcome to anybody who might be joining on Zoom or maybe potentially watching the YouTube recording later. Before we get into the review, first of all, this is the review for computer organization, the final exam. We only have one exam, so keep that in mind. Well, one final exam. We have our examlets. Essentially, before I get into this, I want to say my normal disclaimers, which is that one, I'm not a TA for this class, nor a professor, nor any form of teaching faculty, staff for this class. So there's a potential that I could get something wrong in this. So in the case that you notice me doing something wrong, feel free to point it out. I'm also just pretty tired. So it's like, yeah, feel free to point anything out right now. I might not be speaking so energetically the entire time. So for this exam review, basically what I did, or not exam review, for this final exam review, basically what I did is I went through all of the previous examlets and I basically like read all the questions, and then like my goal here is to re-explain all the examiner questions up to virtual memory. I didn't include virtual memory or like any of the new stuff because that's just stuff I'm so rocky on that I don't really want to try explaining that now. Of course, that can still be on the final exam, so still make sure to review it and know it by then. But basically, we'll be going up all the way until like from the beginning when we're doing stuff like like instructions, like basic instructions and clocks and all that, and we'll be going all the way to cache designs. So with that being said, I guess we can get right into it. I have notes and everything. So basically, I'll just be going through these problems and doing them and showing you my logic while I do them. And hopefully it helps you guys conceptually understand some of these problems. So if we get started here, I'm recording now. Let's see. Hopefully I don't have to fight with the pen today. DSA was interesting. I had nowhere near as much time to prepare this as I would for the DSA, so this will probably be a slightly more ghetto, but we'll figure it out. So, first of all, question one. This is all the way back from like unit one. This is examiner one content. But basically, you can see we have CP1 is going to be 1. We have CP2 is equal to 2. CP3 is equal to 3. So it says what is the average clock or cycle per instruction of machine M program P that has 29% type 1 instructions, 31% type 2 instructions, and remainder type 3 instructions. So when you get a question like this, you're basically doing a like a weighted average. So if you've taken like chemistry or something, then like this should be like not super difficult. Essentially, we're looking right here up here, and we're seeing that it's going to be if we have 1 and we have let's see. I need you to draw with me, work with me. There we go. It's a little laggy. Let's see. Come on. Okay, there we go. So what we're doing here is we're going to have 0.31. I'm not sure why it's so laggy, but we'll figure it out. We're going to have 0.31 times 1 plus we're going to have 0.29 times 2. Now notice it says that the rest are type 3 instructions. So what we have to do is we're going to have to find the remainder of the percentage, which is going to be 1 minus 0.31 minus 0.29. And we're going to do that times 3, right? So now our average CPI is going to be, let's see if anybody, maybe I should get a calculator out, but we'll find out average CPI real quick, and then we can calculate. So we get 0.31 times 1 plus 0.29 times 2 plus, and then we do 1 minus 0.31 minus 0.29 times 3, and let's see. We're going to get 2.11. Sound about right? Yeah. So 0.31 times 1 plus, let's see, 0.29 times 2, and 1 minus 0.31 minus 0.29 times 3 plus, yeah, 2.11. Okay, so you get 2.11 CPI. I'm not sure what's with the mad delay on this all of a sudden, but it is what it is. So now what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the execution time in microseconds. If we have 10,000 instructions, and machine M has a clock rate of 5 gigahertz. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do for this is we're going to have to say, okay, we have 2.11, and that is going to be 2.11 cycle per instruction, right? And then after that, we're going to see that we have 10,000 instructions. So hopefully you start noticing that like units start canceling, right? Instructions cancel. And then what do we do with this clock rate? Do we divide or do we multiply? We got to do one of the two. Exponentiate. What do we do there? Well, we're gonna divide because think about it conceptually, right? If we have a higher clock rate, right, it's gonna make it take less time. Okay. So then what's giga? Like what power to the 10 is giga? It's 9, so divided by 5e to the 9. And so then after we do this math, let's see. So we have 2.11 times 10, 1, 2, 3, divided by 5 second e to the 9th. And we get 4.22 times 10 to the negative 6. But notice it says microseconds. So because it says microseconds, we got to then multiply that by 10, like 1 times 10 to the 6th, and we get 4.22 microseconds. So let's see. Do you guys remember this stuff? It's like all the way from the beginning of the semester. I'm just curious. Okay. I guess so. That's how we do a problem like that. We're going to move on, and we're going to continue with a continuation of this problem, I think. So let's see. PowerPoint's being so bad right now. It's just really majorly laggy. Let me try doing something like this. Hold on. I'm gonna stop the share with PowerPoint real quick. I'm gonna try turning PowerPoint off and on again because it's like so laggy and it's making it hard for me to properly like do anything. Let's see. We're gonna go. PowerPoint won't even close. For some reason, I got 8 versions of PowerPoint open right now. Instances. That's what this is. We're gonna go here. Okay, I will redo, like later, I'll redo the annotations for the first couple slides because it's just being funky right now. All right, so anyways, we're gonna move on though. So just for the reference, let's see, I'll write the answers down over here just so we know them for now. This first one was 2. Still kind of laggy, but 2.11 CPI, a little bit better. And then this one was going to be 4.22 microseconds. And let's see, now. Let me reset up the sharing now. This entire computer is super laggy at the moment. This is crazy. Have anything else in Task Manager that could be potentially using everything? Let's see. What is using all our memory? Whole V browsers. Let me try something real quick. I'm going to here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to see if maybe turning off wondering if this will, maybe it's just a theme that we're using. Let me check. Okay, yeah, now we have no lag, so I'm gonna just keep it like that. Okay. Can you guys see the screen still on Zoom? I was messing around with PowerPoint to try to make it less laggy on this computer. All right. Seems like we're good. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that might have fixed the issue. So anyways, we'll continue on. So now, okay, we're going to know basically what we're going to do is we're going to recalculate this stuff, but we're going to see what happens if we put it to 7 gigahertz, okay, instead of the original, what was it to add? Let's see. So instead of 5, we'll now be at 7. So now essentially what we're going to do, right? We still have this 2.11 CPI, right? And if I do that right here, but now, and we still have 10,000 instructions. But now when we divide it, we're going to divide it by 7 e to the 9th. And after we divide it by 7 e to the 9th, we're going to get, let's see. So if we get 2.11 times 10,000 divided by 7 e to the 9th, we're going to get 3.0142, we'll just say 3 e to the negative 6th seconds, which is equal to, let's see, we got this, and we got 3.0143 microseconds. So now how do we find speed up? What do? Do we take the old result and put it over the new result, or do we take the new result and we put it over the old result? Over the new, because think about it, right? If we're finding speed up and we're going from something slower to something faster, right? Then the speed up is going to be like greater than 1. So because the speed is going to be greater than 1, it means that you're gonna have like the old slow speed over the new like fast speed, right? So if I go back here, right, we had 4.22 and we had 3.04. So if we do 4.22 over 3.014, we basically get, this. We get 1.4. 1.4 speed up. I believe this was an exact example problem. So now we're going to basically do the same thing, right? But what we're going to essentially do is we're going to calculate if the type 3 instructions were now improved to 2 CPI, or our speed up, and we're still at that 7 gigahertz compared to the original. So to do that, we're going to say that this is now 2, right? And notice that we have still the same percent, right? So it was also, this is a typo. This is supposed to be 0.31, I believe. Yeah, this is why. Okay, this is supposed to be 0. And this is supposed to be 0.29. There you go. But basically, we're going to have 0.31. We're going to have 0.31, and right, take that back. That's not a typo. Hold up. But essentially, that's good. That's fine. Essentially, what we're going to have is we're going to have 0.29. And we're still going to have that as type 1, right? But then now the entirety of the rest is going to be just 2, because you see that this is 2 and this is 2. So we're going to have 0.71 times 2. And after we do that, we then get, and if we calculate 0.29 times 1, and we get 0.71 times 2, now we get 1.71. Now when we get 1.71, we're going to then calculate this one more time. We're going to do 1.71 times 10,000 divided by 7 e to the 9th. And we get, let's see, times 10k, and then we divide by 7 e to the 9th. Now we get 2.44, and I'm just going to add on the micro to save time, microseconds. And then after that, we can finally do the 4.22 microseconds over 2.44 microseconds is equal to, let's see, -6 divided by, we get 1.727 speed up. And units for speed up, like are there units? think about this. And there's no units because you're basically putting a time over another time. So the units just cancel and there's no unit. So yeah, that makes sense. So now we have another question. We have a question, our second question thing. This was also from example 1. The first thing I wanted to know is, well, this is like a benchmark test, okay, from a certain processor. And it says, first of all, what is the result without optimization? And it's 205. So 205 is our result. Now, what does this mean? This means that whatever was the base processor that we were using, maybe it was some like really old Pentium from like 20 years ago or something. Basically, this processor is performing 205 times that of the base processor. Now, you notice you also have this peak, and that's probably if they do like optimizations, as in like they probably overclock the processor or something. And that's probably them trying to get a peak, right? We don't have to worry about that for now. And also, it lasts to the very bottom. It's kind of hard to see because it's kind of cut off. But it says, what is the clock rate? Well, we can see the clock rate is going to be right here, and that is a base clock rate, not non-overclocked. So keep that in mind. That's basically, I think that's all you would need to know for the exam. If something like this happens to show up, just basically how to read it. And then that's a hardware sheet. So yeah. Question 3. So yeah, we have for either higher language program, which I say will result in more assembly language instructions. And then we have RISC and CISC. So one of these is simpler and is typically, being that it's simpler, it typically has more instructions. Because think about it, if all your instructions are really simple, it means that you're going to take more lines to do the same thing. And one of these is a little bit more complicated. And that's because it has more complicated commands, that means that there are less instructions. So which is which? Does anybody know? Anybody want to like shout it out? Yeah.
Is many and the risk is fewer. I'm not huge.
Yeah, so that's correct. So well, actually, wait. Is that correct? I don't think that's wait. No, I'm pretty sure. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think RISC is actually more instructions, right? Yeah. So I know, like, let's see. If ARM is RISC, right? That means ARM is simple, more instructions. I'm 100% sure that RISC has actually more instructions. Let's see. I'll say is RISC more instructions than CISC. Let's make sure. Yeah, so RISC has less complicated instructions, but more of them. So I'm going to write that down here. So RISC, I don't need to write RISC again, but less complicated instructions, but more instructions, I believe. And I'm going to check this and make sure. Let's see. I'm pretty sure. Let me check something. Is ARM RISC based? Yeah, an ARM is an example of a RISC based. So an example would be ARM. And I'm pretty sure also that for CISC, you have more complicated instructions. And once again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but you have more complicated instructions and more complicated instructions would mean that you have less overall instructions. And what would an example of this be? Probably x86, right? And I'll check that in a second, but x86, let's see, is x86 CISC? Pretty sure. Yeah, and x86 is a CISC. So I don't know if you guys remember, like all the way from back in the beginning, basically ARM is used in all the mobile devices. It's also used in some of the newer MacBook chips. And that's why, do any of you guys have a MacBook with an M1 by chance? Or no? Okay, yeah. Have you been told that there's going to be issues in OS, potentially? Yeah. Yeah. So the reason basically they're telling everyone there's going to be issues in OS with MacBooks that have that one The reason for that is because the M1 chip uses ARM instead of x86. And a lot of, I guess, the architecture they need for some of the stuff they do in OS is x86. And then this also has, for me, I'll teach 3504, like the weird computer programming class. And this is also made like a lot of errors, like even in my class, like students having weird compiler errors when trying to use certain libraries or versions of C++ or functions or whatever. So basically, yeah, basically we have ARM and laptop, it can cause issues, but ARM is also used in like a lot of phones and stuff. Keep that in mind. And that's RISC. And that's where we learn, obviously, like V8 is kind of a version of ARM. But x86 is using most desktops and like complicated stuff. So anyways, let's see. So now it says match the instruction set type with it to its description. And I know you guys don't have like the drop down box, but basically this is a question with a drop down box. And we need to know that RISC is going to have arithmetic operations for registers only, whereas CISC is going to have arithmetic operations for registers and memory. And that is obviously why CISC would be more complicated, but take less time to do simple things, right? So once again, those are just like basic definitions like you might want to have in your mind. Okay. So now question 5 was write descriptions for each of the following. And once again, this was kind of like a really basic definition type question that we had. It was another drop down box menu that you just basically matched. So what does your memory do? Just on a general basis, like this is like a really general answer. It remembers. So we're going to say stores instructions and data. Okay. Does anybody remember what the control does? Well, the control, I like to say, like controls things, right? But like basically, you can imagine the control is kind of like the boss of the data path. It's like telling it what to do. So it's basically, I guess the technical definition I've written down here is it sends signals to determine operations. Let's see. Operations of other components, okay? And finally, we have a data path, which is what is actually executing the instructions, okay? Once again, really basic definitions, just kind of know what they are. Obviously, we learn much more about data paths in Examlet 3 content, so we'll get to that in a bit. Single and pipeline. So now we get to Examlet 2 content. So with that being said, this will be hopefully some of this, because a lot of this is like kind of on and all that. Hopefully this will start being like more readily available in your memory, you know, maybe in your own little cache. That was a bad joke. So what we want to translate this function to hex. Okay, we have x15, x13, x14. X15, X14, X13. And we're going to try to translate this text. And I have some screenshots here of the reference sheet that we're going to use to do this. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at what type this is. And when we look at it and we find a little chart, we see that this is an R type. Okay. So now based on the fact that it's an R type, we're going to look here and we're going to see, okay, R. It starts with an opcode. Now, in order to find the total number of bits that are used in each section of this instruction format, what you're going to do is you're going to take whatever's on the left and you're going to subtract whatever's on the right, and then you're going to add 1. So for example, if I take 31 minus 21, well, you can see that that's 10. If then we add 1, it's 11, right? So we know the opcode is going to be 11 bits long. That should line up right here. If we go, let's see, 4, 8, 11. See, that makes sense. Okay, so remember the opcode is going to be our first 11 bits, and that is going to be 1, 0, 0, 0. 1 0 1 0 0 0 0. Okay, and after that we're going to have now this is going to be a register. That's kind of what the R means. And now in this case, in this format, On M is specifically at the register all the way on the right. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to see that this register is 13. So now we're going to have to put in the hex for 13. Okay. So now remember, what is hex 13? Well, we know that A is 10. B is, well, actually, we can just do, let's see, we do 13 minus 8 is going to be 5. And then we're going to say there's going to be a 4, right? Okay, because then we have 13 minus 8 is 5, and then 5 minus 4 is going to be 1. So we're not going to have any 2s, and then we're going to have a 1, right? So that's how we get 13. Here's the issue here, right? So 20 minus 16 is equal to 4, and 4 plus 1 is equal to 5, right? So the thing is, we have 5 bits to represent this number that we only really need 4 bits for. So actually, I kind of wrote this wrong. But here, let me do this. We're going to have to go 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. Okay, because that's 5 bits for that space. So in the shift, that's like how much you shift, and this operation doesn't have any shift. And then operation, you only really have a shift on. Let me think, what do you have a shift for? It's only shifting like by 2s, right? Operations that do that, but this is not doing that. So we're not going to have any shift, but notice 15 minus 10, that is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. So we're going to need 6 bits for this. So we're going to go, let's see, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for shant. And then we have this RN. This RN right here is going to be this next register, which is X14. So we're going to once again need 5 by the way, because 9 minus 5 is 4, and the 4 plus 1 is 5. So in order to do this, we're going to go 14, but we're going to start with a 0, and then after that, we're going to have 1 8. 14 minus 8 is 6, so we're not going to have any 8s. 6 minus 4 is 2, so then we have a 2 and a 1, so we have something like that, right? Let's see. Yeah. So hold up. What did I do? So we have an 8. Let's see, we have an 8, and then after that, let's see, we have no, I'm tripping. But we have 14 minus 8 is 6, and then 6. Okay, this is a 4, my bad. So we have 1 4. 6 minus 4 is 2, and then there we go. That looks more. So anyway, that's, and then finally, this RD right here is going to be this right here, which is 15. So I'm kind of adding this to the very, very end, but basically we're going to have a 0. And 15, what is a 15 in hex when we put it in? It's 1 less than 16. So what does that mean 15 has to be? It's all ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now we can finally put this all in hex, right? And when we put this all in hex, what is this in hex? This first one is going to be 8. The second one is going to be 8 plus 2, which is 10 times A. This next one is going to be 0. Now this is going to be 13. 13, let's see, so we have A is 10, B is 11, C is 12, D is 13. So we have D, right? And then after that, we're going to do this, which we get 0. And then after that, we're going to do this, we get 1. And then we're going to go, let's see. And then, so then after that, we're going to get 12, which is C. And then finally, we're going to get F. So the final answer for this command, after we translate it into F, is going to be 8, 0, D, 0. This is a 1, by the way. 1 CF. Does that make sense to you guys? I know it seems like a long-winded process, and there's kind of just like a lot of 0s and 1s. So it's kind of, I feel like these are very easy if it's like a fill in the blank to like get 1 off, and then it's like, dang it, I got it entirely wrong because I got 1 off. But hopefully the process at least makes sense, right? And also, just note that I think we should also just memorize these core instruction formats. You should probably just like memorize. Like for example, when I told you like, oh, I know RM is the one, and I know RM is the one in the middle, and I know ID is destination, so you can see what's being put in X15. It's not left. I think that's stuff you guys should also just memorize when you're looking at the like the 8 sheets. Okay. So now we're going to move on. Okay, so we have once again another kind of simple, more basic, just what is a vocab term. All these vocab terms are in this PowerPoint, but this is just an example of one. Let's see. So what we're going to do, also, we had someone in the chat earlier, we had Benjamin, he put in the chat risk, like he confirmed like risk is more simple, but more instructions, just so you guys know, just gonna point that out. But also, so what is the function of decode? Anybody want to like, anybody know? What decoder does? No. Yeah, it basically, that's solid. So this is like a really funky definition, in my opinion, which is the one I chose to write down so everyone knows. But basically, this is the best English version of this definition I can get. Input control lines. Are used to choose. Gosh, my handwriting is so bad. Used to choose an output to activate something. So once again, that's just like a vocab term. There are plenty of these throughout all the slides. This did like show up on a example somewhere, so I just threw it in. If you have questions on like the exact vocab terms, I think this was like comparing it to like other, like this was, if you want more context on what this was like, as opposed to, I think some of the other options were like a mux or something like that. So if you wanted to like see these definitions and compare them to other things, you could like go and search up all those terms. See, this is slightly cut off because I switched the general format, but basically we're converting this to command and we have this little, I kind of already spoiled it. It's a subs command. The reason I spoiled it was so that you guys could see the process of me doing it. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to first start by converting we're converting this command to basically the opposite of what we did here. Okay. We're converting this from hex to figure out which command it is. So we're going to first start off, and I'm going to convert this to binary. So what is E? I'm going to write this up here again. So A10, E11, C12, D13, E14, and then F15. So E is 14. So 14 is going to give us, we're going to get 1, 8, 1, 4, 1, 2, and 0, 1s, right? And then B is going to be, let's see, B is going to be 11. So 11 is going to give us 1, 8, and then we're going to have no 4s. And then we're going to have a 2 and a 1, right? So, oh, wait, hold up. Yeah, wait, yeah. B is 11, so yeah, looks good. So 8, so we're going to have 1, 1, 0, or 1, 1, 1, 0. And then we're going to have 1, 0, 1, 1. And you already noticed that this starts to line up with this opcode, right? Something to look for when you're like doing, if we get a question like this and it says to convert a hex to some function, you can really look at the first 3 or 4 of the opcodes, because like there aren't many opcodes, for example, that have 111 at the beginning. There's only a few of them. So just by seeing that it starts off with 1110, like you can already immediately like take down quite a few of the options that you can have if you're looking at that really long leg V8 sheet. So keep that in mind. So now I'm going to keep converting this. So now we have zeros, and it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, right? And then after that, we have F, which is going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, and we have 0, 0, 0, 0, and then we have a 1, so it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 1, and we have a C, which is a 12, so 1, 1, 0, 0, and then we have a D, which is 13, so we're going to have 1, 1, 0, 1, right? And that is our entire command, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say the first 11 is the opcode. So we're going to go, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So that's where the opcode is. Now we notice that for this opcode, this is R. So because we know it's R, we know it's, like I said, 11 for the opcode. And then after that, the next 5 are going to be for the RM, right? So we're going to take this, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And then the shamped is going to be 6. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And then after that, we're going to have the next 5 for the RM. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then finally, we're going to have the next 5 for the RD, right? So we're going to go like this. And we're going to go 5. Okay, so now this should give us all the information. So we know this opcode, which has 11. is going to be the subs command. And then what is this first part? Which like, because we have three basically registers that were involved in this command. So what is this first one right here? The RM. We mentioned it earlier. Like so it's going to be either here, 1, 2, or 3. Which one is that going to be? 3, yeah. So, so this is 15, so we're going to have like an X15 right here, right? So then after that, we have the shant. Once again, this is not a command that's doing any bit shifting or anything, so it makes sense that it's 0. And after that, we have this, which is this is going to be 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So now we have an X14. Where is this X14 going? Any guesses? 2? Yeah. So X14 goes here, and that moves basically, once again, this ID means destination, which you can always assume is going to be, and that's going to be 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So let me erase that. But basically, we have an X13. So this command is going to be subs X13, X14, X15. And it was, like I said, it's basically the opposite of what we did earlier. Does it also make sense to you guys, the process? Once again, we're just using a really good sheet to figure that out. So, yeah. Okay, now we have how many control lines are needed by a decoder to choose one of 30? I guess I should do this. 1 of 30 outputs to activate. Now, do you guys remember how to do this? It's really, really simple. It's like one tiny operation. Basically, you're going to take the seal, log to, and then you're going to put the number of outputs. And so if we do this, right, then we're going to have seal log 230. Anybody want to figure out what log 230 is? It's probably like 4 point something, right? So we'll just say it's going to be the seal of 4 point something, right? And then that would give us, I don't know what this is, but it'll go up to 5, right? And that makes sense because log 232 is 5. Okay. So that's how you do that. So now after that, let's see, we're going to move on. Okay, so now what we're going to have is we're going to be looking at we have a sum of products question. Now, do you guys remember this one? Maybe. So now, when we're doing the sum of products problem, right, we're going to basically have we're going to be looking at the times where this is equal to 1. There's also a product of sums, which I think is when you're looking at when it's equal to 0. And they're basically doing exactly what they sound like. So sum of products, we're going to be adding things up and then multiplying them. And then in the case that those things equal 1, we know that that's our data set that we get. So, for example, right here, this is what we're going to start with. We're going to look at the first time that we get 1. Okay, and what do we get 1 first? We get 1 first right here. Essentially, what we're going to do to make a function that represents these control lines or whatever you want to call them, is we're going to take this and we're going to say, okay, what is A here? Is A 0 or 1? A 0, right? So we're going to write A naught. And then, once again, this is a sum of products. So we're going to be multiplying and then adding those products, right? So with A, and we're going to say B is 1. And so that means we're not going to do B naught. And then C is 0. So we're going to do C naught. And then we're going to sum products. Okay, so this is a product, and now we're going to add more products. So now we're going to go to its next one, and we see that that's going to be A naught times we have B times C, and then after that we're going to add, and we're going to say we're going to now go to this one. We're going to say A times B naught times C, right? Oh wait, no, I'm joking with you guys. Hold on. We're going to say A times B naught times C naught. And then finally, we're going to go here and we're going to say this is our last one, and we're going to have A times B naught times C. And let me just make sure this matched like real quick, so I know that I didn't mislead you guys. Let's see, so we have A naught times B times C naught plus A naught times B times C plus A times B naught times C naught plus A times B naught times C. Yeah, we're good. And so basically that's how you would do this in the sum of products. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? Hopefully. Also, like I said, the other side of this would be the product of sums, where you're looking at the zeros. I'm not going to go over that. Maybe we can talk about it like after this if you guys want to, but that'd be something else that you could like look into doing. But it's very similar. It's basically forcing them to be zero. Like for example, if any of these are zero, then you would end up getting the product of sums. Okay. So yeah. Now we get to examine 3 content. I think this is actually an actual ARM programming. So let's see. So we have this first question. We have, what does the following mean if in C, like in C++, C, just like any higher range, right? If I is stored in X23 and J is stored in the register X24. And we have this subcommand and we have this CDNZ X9 else. Okay, so first of all, we need to say, what is this doing? Well, this command is saying we're going to put X23 minus X24 into X9, right? And then after that, we're doing a comparison with X9 and we're checking, is X9 not 0? Then go else. Okay, so now what this is actually saying, it's going to sound kind of whack, but basically, notice we say if X9 is not 0, then we go else. Right? So what would we do in order to not go else, aka to go to the normal, like, we would actually do the opposite. So what this is actually saying is this is saying if I equals J, / do something, and then else. Okay. And hold on, let's see. There we go. But yeah, that's what that's actually saying. Does that make sense to you guys? Why there's like it's kind of like second double negative for that. Okay. So why that's what that means. So keep that in mind. We're going to continue on if there are no questions. So it's now asking what is stored in X10 after we do this operation. And we have WX10, X9 number 4. So essentially what we're going to do here, right? And also it says big endian. What we're going to do here is, well, first of all, the thing that we need to look at first is this has this, like, this W right here, right? Now, this W means we're going to do like a word instead of a double word. Which means 4 bytes, not 8 bytes, okay? Now, notice that these are all kind of like S values, right? And essentially what we're going to have here is, since like, for example, E could be like 4 bits, right? And a byte is 8 bits. You can see that basically we have each of these is like 1 byte of data, right? Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to X9. And we're going to, after we go to X9, we're going to go to number 4. Now, X9 we can see is this 0x00, whatever you want to call it, right? So we're going here, and this is, now we can see that this is where X9 starts. Okay, and we're going to go forward. So we're going to go. Okay, so now what we know is, and we're doing 4 bytes. So we're going to start here and we're going to do 4 bytes. So basically the data that we're dealing with is this data right here, because that is 4 bytes. And then we can find what is now stored in the X10, and we're going to use big endian. Okay, so what it means is that basically we're going to have the big end on, or the big memory on the end. So what is the big part of memory? There's 4, 5, 6, 7. What's the biggest number? Obviously 7, right? So 7 is going to end up going on the end, right? So with 7 on the end, that means what we're going to end up with is we're going to end up with something like this. We're going to have E 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Now, here's the issue, right? When we look at this X10, we see that basically we have, I think, probably 16 bits or something like that. So we have 4, 8, and then we have, so we have 16 bits here, right? What do we need 8 bits here? So what do we do with this is gonna be the end, right? What do we do with the 8 bits on the left that we don't use? Does anybody know? No? Okay. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to add Fs. So we're going to add 8 Fs. We're going to add, that's called padding. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We get 0x. And basically, this is our final answer. And I'll check to make sure, I'm going to check my answer key to make sure that I did it all correct. Yeah, that looks correct. Okay, cool. And so that's how we do that problem. Is there any, does everybody understand how it was done? Like I said, you might want to look into for the exam, maybe looking into like little ending or not. Has anybody looked at the review that she wrote out? I think she wrote a review. I haven't even looked at it, but I think she wrote a review with like the general topics. So we want to check if this is on the topics list. Hopefully it is. It's actually some of the stuff in the class. So yeah. Do I know why it is? Honestly, I don't really have an answer for that. I'm sure there is a reason, but I know it was just to pad it off. Now, I'm trying to think if there's any like actual explanation of it now, other than I just know that it goes to Fs. But honestly, I don't think I know something off the top of my head. Maybe if someone wants to Google it, feel free. But yeah, I just know you have to use Fs. Okay. Do you guys want this question? It's from an examlet. It was a very large question. Okay, so basically, this was on an examlet. I remember for this examlet, everyone was like, let's go. The examlet's only 3 questions. And then they got to this question and they were like, it was hard. It was big, but anyways. So what we're essentially doing here is we're writing an ARM program. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go through like the stuff that we're doing here. So we need to, some things we need to keep in mind. Var1 is an X9 currently. So this is important. This is important. Var2 is an X10. And then we need to know like what the stack pointer is, what our like return address is, etc. So yeah, what we're going to do is first we're going to now notice the first thing they start is they say make room on the stack. So now what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to move down in order to make room on the stack. Yeah, the stack one. And so how are we going to subtract like a certain number? Notice that we're doing semi and we're subtracting 24. So what are we going to subtract 24 from? Stack one, yeah. So we're going to start by saying we're basically going to subtract 24 from the stack pointer and then store that in the stack pointer. Does that kind of make sense? Hopefully. So now we're going to place some arguments on the stack. And we have these arguments ready to call a function, right? Now, when you put arguments into a function, what is the first register that when you call a function that needs arguments that it's going to look at? It's going to be, I don't know if you guys remember this, but we don't use this for like reprogramming assignment 2. It's X0. So basically, we have to first put the first argument in X0, and then after we put the first argument in X0, if you have a 2, now it's like basically you have a 2 arguments, then you want to put a 2 on X1, right? That's the next spot, right? So then we need to put the return address into the X1. What is the return address in ARM? X30. I just mentioned this just a second ago. We're going to call this function right here. And this function is an argument, and we need to actually look at what register is going to be called upon with a 1 argument function. So what I just said like 5 seconds ago, Loki. So which one of these is going to be the register that we use when we put one argument into a function? And then we're going to be call a function. X0 is going to be our first one. Okay. So we're putting x1 into x0. So that way we can, because we're calling this function with arg2, right? Now, in the case where we're calling this function with arg, like arg1 or something like that, or var1, well, in the case that we were doing that, then we would be putting x0 basically and just putting it in. But because we're putting arg2 in, that's why we have to move x1, x0 so we can call the function with what's essentially x2, or x1, which is our second argument, arg2. Now we have a procedure. What do we have to put before we call a different procedure? It's all over the bottom here. Sorry, it's hard to see. Is it B or B L? Right here. Yeah. Branch link, because we got to know how to get back later. So now, after we do that, we're going to move something in x9. Now, what we need to know is what register is our variable 1 in. Now, notice that our variable 1, because we need that back to x9. So where do we store kind of our variable 1 in? It's 1. Yeah, that's correct. So x1. And then we have to restore everything. So basically, we're restoring our 1, and notice we put and we're restoring this from the stack. And so notice that basically this stuff is going to be x0, x1, and then x30, because this is like after the whatever the function and everything. So finally after that, so that's notice that this lines up, right? So this lines up here. This lines up here. And this lines up here. Okay. So just notice that. And then finally, we're going to have to add our stack pointer. Now, what did we originally take our stack pointer down? 24. And then after that, we're going to see, we can see here that we have to say that var2 is var1 plus arg1. Now, what is var2? Now, var2 we see is x10. And then we have to put the values that are, and we see that var1 is x9. And then finally, we have what is the result going to be? What did we put into our function earlier? And what is arg1? So we can say that, we can see right here that we have restored arg1 to x0. So that means arg1 currently is x0. Okay. Now finally, this is the one thing I was confused on when I was doing this. I think I got this part wrong. We need to move x10 to the appropriate register for the return, which I could have sworn in our I feel like it might have been different in our specific emulator on how to do this. But for like the general logical purposes, we're going to go. We have x1 and x0 already used, so that means we're going to put this into x2. And then finally, we're going to do our bench. What's our bench? X30, yeah. And so that is that. Kind of made sense. I know this is like really confusing, to be honest. Once again, this is a much longer problem. I think a lot of people struggle on, but if you want to do it logically, it's not that bad. Yeah. Are you saying which part is that in? Like right here? Or
but how do you know like where in your budget, like how do you know
I'm pretty sure, so like in a typical case, it's basically going to be whatever you call, okay, however many parameters that you can put in, right? So I think you see how this has 2 parameters. And then I think this also, you see how this has 1 parameter, right? So I think what it is this takes in parameters as x0 and x1, right? And because this function right here has 2 parameters. So then what this function I think is going to return to x2, Whereas for this function right here, it takes an R2 and index 0. So when this function returns, I think it's going to return into x1. So it's kind of like, it's basically taking a number of parameters, I think, and you add one. That's my understanding at least. Does that make sense? And that's, we do that for every function essentially. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to move on. Now we get to examine more content. Notice we start making math errors in here, but we'll figure it out. I have work, so hopefully I won't make too many. Okay, so we have the second iteration of multiplication where the product and multiplier shifted right is the second step of each iteration. So this is like one of the methods that it's basically forcing you to do, and it's for, this problem is forcing you to show the steps, basically to show you know the different methods of multiplication. So we have one iteration down, and what we need to do is basically what we're going to do is we're going to multiply. So we're going to look at the product multiplier over, right? So we have 0, 0. We start with 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0. And then we have a multiplicand, which is right here, which is going to be 0, 1, 1, 0. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the rightmost thing. We're going to multiply this by the multiplicand. And when we multiply this by the multiplicand, we get 0, 0, 0, 0. And then we add it to the product. And so basically what happens is we add this to the product, and we get 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0. And then finally, we'll see that this is step one of the iteration right here. And then finally, we will shift this to the right one, and we will add a 0 at the beginning. So we get 0, 0, 0, 0, another 0, 1, 1, 1. And that's how they get this, okay? So essentially now what we have to do is we have to do that same thing with the multiplication again. So I'm going to write this down here. We have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. Now notice that now the rightmost bit is going to be 1, and we still have our 0, 1, 1, 0 for the multiplicand here. So now this becomes times 1, essentially. So then after we go times 1, we get 0, 1, 1, 0. So now, after we do that, and once again, same process. So we're going to add this. We're going to get 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. And then we're going to have to shift right again. So we get 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. And we'll make sure that that is fully correct. Yeah, it is. So that is actually the answer for this problem. So like this would be like, this right here would be the first iteration, and this right here would be second iteration of that. And basically we do that until you get, I guess, all the way to the right. But does that make sense as to how to find that iteration? I basically just did the 2 full iterations. Hopefully, if that's confusing and if I went too fast, feel free to like watch the video again. But that's the process that you do for this. So you like that answer. So now we have question 2. So now we're going to be going to IEEE format from a floating point from hex. So, I mean, the first thing that you're going to need to know is that for IEEE format, basically what you're going to have is you're going to have a sign, which is going to be 1 bit. And for this 1 bit number, we're going to have 0 equals positive, and we're going to have that 1 equals negative, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that is correct. And feel free to point out if that's wrong. I'm like 95% sure. But anyways, so now we're going to have our exponent. Then we're going to, and this is like 1 field, by the way. So we have a sign field, which is just 1 bit. And then we're going to have an exponent field, which is going to be 8 bit. And this is like 2 to the power of what are we doing? And then finally, after that, we're going to have our, we're going to have basically our 23-bit like kind of tag type thing. Or I guess this would be fraction. That's what it is. So we have a fraction, 23 bits. Okay. So that is our general format for IEEE, right? So notice that for this problem, essentially what we have to do is we have to look at we have to find the 8-bit binary. So the first part of this is going to be 5C4, and that's really all we're going to have to look at in order to get this 8-bit exponent field. So with 5C4, we're gonna say, what is 5 in binary? We're going to say that's gonna be 0, 8s, 1, 4, 0, 2s, and 1, 1. So we have 5, and then C is gonna be like 12, right? So it's gonna be 1, 1, 0, 0. And then 4 is going to be 0, 1, 0, 0. So essentially what's going to happen here is we have, this is the sign. And the next 8 bits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These would be the exponent right here. So that's how we get that exponent. So I guess it would be, let me make sure this is correct. It's going to be 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Okay. Yoink. And let's see, let me check that. So we have 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0. Yeah, wait, hold up. Yeah, I have 9 bits. I was sitting here like, wait, that's 9. There we go. There we go. That is it. There we go. Nice. So there's that. All right, so now we're going to continue to move on. It says which of the boxed parts in the data path would be utilized for an LD instruction. Now, basically, what we're looking at is we're looking at all this single cycle data path, and we can see that these parts, these are actions. But essentially, these up here, I think they're going to be used for more like CB and CBZ and stuff. Whereas these right here will be used for like the other, like a lot of things, including like R type and all that. So let's see, R type, I think. So what that means is that for this elder instruction, right, we're going to have 3 and 4. Okay. And for this stuff, this is just memorization again. It's like memorizing like what uses what functions use what. So there are a ton of, once again, there are a ton of PowerPoint slides if you want to review them and like memorize them. I think this might be, was this example 4 that we're on, or is this example 3? Yeah, example 4. So if you're going to do example 4, like practice problems, I think there's like slides with like every single type of instruction that has all of the types of stuff if you want to review and memorize that. Okay. Okay, so now here's another type of problem. It says, what are the control signals for each mux for a CBZ instruction where the output of the 0 control line is 1? Okay, so first of all, we're going to have to move down here and we're going to see that we're dealing with CBZ, right? After we see that we're dealing with CBZ, we're going to, so for each mux, so we have this mux right here, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, mux 1, if we follow this, right, we're going to rid of mux 1, and then we're going to run the new thing, and we're going to. Okay, we're going here. We'll see that this is red 2 rock. Okay, so essentially what we're going to do is now we're going to go to CBZ and we're going to look at what is red 2 rock. And we're going to see that this is a 1, and so we're going to write a 1 here. Now, after that, we're going to go to number 2. Here's our second mux. We're going to once again go up this blue path. Okay, so we're going to and we see that this is a, I know it's really, is it like really blurry or like really hard to see, but it's LU source. Okay, and so that LU source is going to be 0. And then finally, we have to go to this mux. Now, the thing is, for this mux, this depends on this thing right here. And this is a digital logic like and gate, right? Or is that an R? Yeah, probably an and. But anyways, yeah, I think that's an and gate in digital logic. Visual logic, yeah. Yeah, and okay, yeah. So that's an and gate, right? And so essentially what we're going to have here, we're going to have to see, sorry, I like kind of like covered this, but we're going to have to look at what's going into this, right? So we're going to have to go and go here. We see that this is the branch. So we're going to look at branch real quick, and we see that branch is 1. And then we're going to say that, and it says that from the 0 control line is also 1. So we basically have 1 and 1 going into this AND gate. So now what's going to come out of this AND gate is going to be into this mux is going to be another 1. Okay. So basically 1, 0, 1 is the final answer for this. So hopefully that also kind of makes sense. All right, so now we have another triple IE question. And I keep saying IEEE. Is it technically IEEE? Did I make a typo here? Or was it IEE? I don't know. Should be triple, right? Yeah, it's based. I'll try to edit this later. Because it should be, let's see, IEEE. Yeah, that makes more sense. There we go. But anyways, we're converting 8.125 from decimal to IEEE 754, right? So the first thing we're going to do when we do this is we're going to take a look. We're going to separate this. So here's our decimal. Here's our fraction, right? Now notice, how would we represent 8 by binary? Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to write, well, 8 in binary would be 1, 0, 0, 0, right? And then how do we represent 1/8 by binary? Well, 1/8 would be basically this, right? Because you guys see why that's 1/8? Because essentially what we're doing is, well, okay, so this is 1/8 right here, which is same thing as 1/2^3. So basically what you do is, because we know it's 1/2^3, we're going to end up basically saying that this is, that's why we basically go 1, 2, 3, and that's where a 1 is. It's kind of weird, but that's how you would go from 8.125 to like a binary representation of 8.125. So after we do that, we're then going to have to basically say, okay, how do we normalize this? In order to normalize this, it's kind of like doing scientific notation, but instead of scientific notation, we're doing like binary notation. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But essentially, what we're going to do is we need one decimal all the way on the left. Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So notice basically what we get is 1.000001 times, and now this is a binary number though, this is not a decimal number. So if we were doing this with scientific notation, it'd be like times 10 to the third, but because this is a binary number, we're doing this with binary notation, it is actually times 2 to the third, right? So we're going to go times 2 to the third. And that's kind of weird, but essentially now what we're going to do is, when I was talking about that notation, right? So we have a sign, which is 1 bit, exponent, which is going to be 8 bit. And then after that, we have our fraction, which is 23 bit. So essentially what we have to do is we have a sign where we know that it's a positive number. Because it is a positive number, earlier I said that the positive number is going to be denoted by 0 at the beginning. So the first thing is going to be 0. That's going to be a sign. And then we have our 8-bit exponent. So now to get our 8-bit exponent, you would think that it's just 3 because we have times 2 to the 3. But actually, we might have exponents much larger, much bigger that we want to be able to represent. So basically, a number 127, which is actually just like 2 to the 8th or 7th, whatever. Let's see, 5th is 32, 64, 7th. Yeah, 2 to the 7th. They basically picked a number, which is 127, to add to this and then make that the exponent. So that way you can do like negatives as well as positives and still represent it by a positive number. So what we're going to have is we're going to have to basically take 3, and we're going to say our exponent is going to be 3 plus 127, which is equal to 130. And then basically 130 is actually going to be what's going to be in our 8-bit exponent field. So to represent 130, we're going to have to say that this is 128, right? Which is 2 to the 7th, which is 8 bits. 2 to the 7th is all the way to the left because you basically have 0 to 7, right? So we're going to have 128, 064s, 032s, 016s, 08s, 04s. We're going to have 1, 2, because it's going to be 128 plus 2 is 130, and 01s, right? So that should be 8 bits. Let's see. Yeah, 8 bits, cool. And then finally, we have our little tag. Our tag is going to end up being essentially what we do for the tag is this is kind of irrelevant, this 1, because it's always going to be 1. So essentially, you're going to just take this part and you're going to make this the tag. And so it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And then we have to make that 23 because it's long. So I'm not going to write all 23 zeros because that would take a long time. But basically 23 total bits long. add zeros to end. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. So next up, question 6, we're going to convert -49, that is base 10, to 2's complement, and we're going to go over how to do this. This is for negative numbers typically. I think there is a bit of positive numbers, but 2's complement, you're typically dealing with a negative number. But anyways, so the first thing we're going to do to convert this to 2's complement is we're going to say, we're going to take the opposite of this. So we're going to take 49 instead of -49. And we're going to essentially, we're going to convert this to binary. So I have a period reason of this. And also we need this to be like an H binary. Okay, so a random reason of 49 would be 0, 0. And then it would be, okay, so now at this point we have 0 128s, 0 64s, we have 132, 49 minus 32, let's see, 49 minus 30 is 19, minus 2 is 17, right? So now we have a 17. So because we have 17, we're going to get 116, and then we just have a 1 left, and that's it. So then we're going to get 0 8s, 0 4s, 0 2s, and 1 1, right? So let me make sure that's correct. So we have 0 0 1 1, and then we have 3 zeros and a 1. Okay, so yeah, that's 39. And what we have to do to convert to 2's complement after you take the opposites like number in binary is you're not going to flip everything. You're going to take its complement, which is basically you take all the zeros and you make them ones, and you take all the ones and you make them zeros. So now we're going to do the complement step. That's spelled complement wrong, by the way. This is actually supposed to be an E, but anyways. So we're going to complement, and we're going to say 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 0. And then the next step is going to be to add 1. So when we add 1, it's nice, and we just have to add 1 in the beginning. So then this becomes 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 1. Now you add 1 and it goes all the way to the end. I think you basically just cut that one off. Just so you guys know. So we're gonna add 1, and thirdly, our next step, it says to make it a 16-bit representation. Now notice we need it to be negative. Because we need a negative number, we don't need a positive 49, we need a negative 49. What did I say? We only got 1s and 0s. Well, to make something negative, you need to have a 1 at the beginning. So essentially, we're going to, in order to make this a 16-bit representation, we're going to take these 8 bits and we'll put them at the end. We're going to take more 1s and we'll put them at the beginning. So we're going to have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 1. And so that's our final answer. Okay. So once again, I think that kind of makes sense as well. I'm just going to move on. Let's see what times are there now. 6:49, so literally an hour that we've been at it. We're on exam with 5, and we have like part of the exam with 6, and then I'll be done. So, okay, this says which line numbers have stalls. So you can have stalls for a couple of different reasons. The main reasons we're going to see here is because of a data hazard or a control hazard. I'll get into that in a second. But essentially what we're going to have here is we see we're bringing in some values into X2. And then we're using X2 literally right away. So if this was a parallel line processor, basically what happens is we didn't have the X2 yet. Because we don't have the X2, we're trying to use the X2. If this was once again like 5 stages or whatever, this is an issue. So basically, 40 is going to have a stall. Now we look at 34, and we see that we're using X1. And notice once again, we're calculating X1 up here. So that's also an issue. So being that we have X1, and we're trying to use X1 here, 44 will also stall. Now, we're trying to say X1, but notice at this point, we've already gotten our X1. We're not changing our X1 in the checking if it's 0. So that one would have been calculated. So this is fine. X2, we never even calculated anything for X6 or number 3. And then X7, X6, X3 are all good. So that's all the lines, I believe. So these are only the only 2 stalls. Okay. So that makes kind of sense once again. That makes sense. Let's see. So now we have which control signals are forwarded to the EX stage in this question right here. So, okay, this shouldn't be too hard. we're going to go to EX and we're going to see what goes into it. So let's see. We have EX, we have two control signals coming out of it. We have ALU source. And then also we have EX, we have ALU OP. Okay, so and let me make sure that's correct. Let's see, and yeah, that's correct. So basically, once again, that's as simple as just looking at a data path, following lines and seeing what they work. Okay. So now we have, okay, we have some more math to do. We have basically what we're doing is we're going to look at single cycle data path cycle time versus 5-stage pipeline cycle time, and we're going to calculate the speed up. Calculating speed up is the same stuff we did from exam 1, but instead of calculating like it's basically just dividing old time dividing new time, right? So single cycle data path cycle time means that basically all these operations we are doing sequentially in order. We're not doing them at the same time at all. So we're going to get 250. We're going to get 250 plus, and these are all picoseconds, by the way, 150 plus 100 plus 250 plus 150, right? Now, if I take a calculator and I calculate this real quick, we're going to get 250 plus 150 plus 100 plus 250 plus 150. And I made a typo somewhere. Hold up. Let's see. 250 plus 150 plus 100 plus 250 plus 150. We get 900 picoseconds. Okay. So now, after we do this one, we're going to go ahead. This is for our single cycle data path cycle time. It's as simple as adding up the numbers. Now, for the first stage, basically what we're going to look at is we're going to look at these and we're going to know that essentially, once we get past one full instruction going through, we're going to basically do an instruction for every single amount of time that is our just amount of time for one step. So we're going to do the steps. We're basically going to say, what is our largest step? 150 is our current largest, and 250 is our current largest. 250 is our largest, 250 is our largest, 250 is our largest. Okay, so 250 picoseconds is our largest step. It's when we get to cycle time. Eventually, we're going to get to where we're doing a cycle every 250 picoseconds, right? And now we're going to calculate speed up with 5 instructions. So to do this, what we're going to do is, first of all, for 5 instructions for our single cycle data path, it's just going to be as simple as 900 times 5, which is 4,500 picoseconds. For our single cycle data path stage pipeline, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. Essentially, what we're going to have to do is an entire line go through. And after an entire line goes through, we're going to know that we're going to have just every 250, there'll be another one going through, another instruction. Okay, so we need an entire instruction to go through first. Now, in order to do this, what we're going to have is we're going to have 5. So there's 5 stages, and each stage is going to take 250. Now, we know it's going to take 250 because the first one's taking 250, so that is not going to take 250 for the first time. One instruction goes through, the time for one singular instruction to go through of our pipeline, right? 5 times 250. But after that happens, we're going to have the rest of the instructions, which is just 5 minus 1. Because we have the 5 total instructions, so that's going to be 4, and those will also be only taking up 250 each. So now if I calculate this, so 4 times 250 is 1,000, plus 5 times 250 is 1,250, so it's 2,250 picoseconds. So I'm going to okay. So now what we actually have to do is we have to calculate the speed up with the level. And if I calculate it's 4, we get 4,500. I think it's just 2, right? Yeah, 2. Okay. So our speed up is 2. Okay, that's our final answer. Okay, so next up we have question 4. So it says, should you predict to take, okay, so now we're looking at some ARM code, and it's going, it's theoretically, if we're in a situation and we're making a compiler or something, should we set, in this example code, should we predict to take the branch or not take the branch? Okay, should we predict to exit or not exit? Now, essentially what we're going to do here is we see that when you look at like a line of code, when you look at branch prediction, it's basically if the exit is going down, which you're not going to take it, not take. If it's going up, you take. So this is going to exit, and exit is right here. So it's exit up or down. Anyway. Is exit up or down? It's down, right? It's below. So we're not going to take the exit. Okay. So after we decide that, we're then going to see if we do not take the exit, how many times are we going to be correct? If X9 starts at 2 and X13 contains 12. What is this essentially doing? What is this loop? What would this be in C if we look at it real quick? It's basically a for loop, okay? This loop is basically for int I equals 2. I is less than, and we see that X13 contains 12. And then I plus plus, right? That's basically what this loop is, okay? But essentially what we're going to do, we're going to have it at 2. And when we have it at 2, we're not going to take it. That's going to be correct because we're going to go back up. And it's going to be 3, and we're not going to take it. And then it's going to be 4, and we're not going to take it. And then it's going to be 5, I won't take it. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And what's going to happen at 12? We're not going to take it, but then we realize that at 12, we should have taken it because we should have exited. We're not going to exit. So the number or 1 kind of like this, okay? And so now, if we look at this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, let's see. This should be, hold up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I take it back. Actually, here's the issue, actually. So notice that at the very beginning, we add 1. So this is actually more like going from, we start from 3 realistically. My bad. But basically, you'll notice that we have 9 out of 10. So our final accuracy rate is going to be 0.9. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so now we have one of the 3 types of hazards. So essentially, our structural hazards, which I mentioned these earlier a little bit, like briefly. Structural hazards, those are going to be hazards due to trying to share hardware. Okay, so now, no doubt these structural hazards we don't really deal with too much in this class, to be honest. But anyway, data hazards, these are going to be hazards due to uncalculated registers. Oh gosh, that's so bad. Hold on. Uncalculated registers. And this is during parallel processing. This is why we can get stalls oftentimes. And finally, we have control hazards, which are basically hazards due to unknown conditional branches. Okay, so hopefully those definitions make sense to you guys. Are they fine? Okay, cool. We will move on. Right, and then finally, we have the pipeline processor, the following execution times, and it says, what is the clock rate? So what you need to know about the pipeline processor is that once again, as n goes to infinity, as we do calculus or whatever, basically, what's going to happen is eventually, once we've gone through one full cycle, every single time that we go through the highest number of seconds on this list, we're going to be putting out an instruction. So basically, one of these, we have to go, we're going to divide one divided by the largest amount of time, because what's like, we're trying to find Hertz frequency, right? And frequency is just like 1/time, right? So what we're doing is we need 1/150 picoseconds. I think pico is -12, right? Yeah. So we have 1 divided by 150 e to the -12. So if I do 1 divided by 150 e to the -12, we get this big number. Essentially, I think we were trying to get this in gigahertz, right? So we have a really big 6 dot dot dot. And then if we get this into gigahertz, what's gigahertz? Is that 9? So I'm going to divide that number by 1 e to the negative, or by 1 e to the 9. And basically we get this final answer is 6.67 gigahertz. And that's as simple as it gets. It's just division and then some unit conversions, I guess. Finally, we have examined 6 contents. I think most of you guys at this point will probably be a little bit more familiar with this content than the rest of the content we went over, because it just so happens we have a fairly large assignment recently for it. So we have main memory takes 100 nanoseconds to access. Okay, so this first part is about cache times, right? And what we need to understand is that for look aside and look through, look aside, it's going to basically do multiple things at once. It's kind of like parallel processing, and whereas look through, it's going to go through everything one at a time and then eventually do that. But so let me get over here. And so for our look aside, we're going to basically say, okay, the look aside is just literally the average. Okay, so we're going to have weighted average, so it's going to be 90%. So it says main memory takes 100 nanoseconds, L1 cache takes 10 nanoseconds and has a 90% hit rate, and then L2 takes 20 nanoseconds and has an 80% hit rate. So we're going to say 90% of the time, we only have to look through L1. So we have 0.9, and we only have to look through L1, and that's 10 nanoseconds, right? Now, what percent of the time do we have to look through L2? Well, it's going to be 0.10 because we have 10% of the time we have to go to L2. And 10% time, we have 80% of the time that we don't have to go out of L2. So it's going to be basically 0.10, 0.8, and then 20 nanoseconds. And finally, we have around 0.10. Once again, 10% of the time we get out of L1, and 20% of the time outside of L1. So it's going to be 0.2, and then 100 nanoseconds. Okay. So then when we add this all up, let's see, we get 0.9 times 10, which is 9. And then we get plus 0.10 times 0.8 times 20. Which is 10.6 added to that when we added to that 9. And then finally we get a 0.10 plus 0.10 times 0.2 times 100. And we get 12.6 nanoseconds. And that's average memory access time. Okay, so now after that, we're going to see the average memory access time for look through. Now, for this problem, we need to understand that basically what we're doing is instead of doing them all at the same time, like kind of sequentially, and then just doing it whenever and then stopping it whenever you find it. This one takes more CPU power because you're doing more stuff at the same time. This one takes less CPU power because you're not doing anything at the same time, and it's going to take more time overall. But basically what we're saying is we're going to only look through one at a time. And if we don't find it, then we'll go to the next one. If we don't find it, we go to the next one. Instead of doing them at the same time. Like this one's more like a racing. This one is sequential order. When I say racing, I mean you have, let's say you have like 3 bars. It's like who gets to it first. Yeah. Anyways, so this one we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, 90% of the time, well, actually, let me take it back. Basically, we're going to start with L1. Then we're going to go all the way through our L1 cache because, like, we can't not go through our L1 cache. So 90% of the time, we're going to go through our L1 cache. Okay. So that's going to be 1 times 10. Now, what percent of the time are we going to go through all of our L2 cache? Well, that would be 10% of the time, right? That we go through all of our L2 cache. And so what we're going to say is we're going to say 10% of the time, we're going to go through all of the L2 cache. Because once we get to a cache, we have to go through all of it, by the way, for this type. So that's going to be 0.10 times 2. And finally, what percent of the time are we going to have to go through our main method? Well, let's see, if there's 90% of the time that we go through R1, and then after that we have 80% of the time we go through, like, should we find an L2, right? So that would mean that essentially for us to have to get to main memory, we don't have to be, we don't have to be basically 0. The 10% chance would have to go through, and then after that 10% chance has to go through, we have to have a 20% chance that goes through. And then after that, we finally go through main memory, and that's our 100. So now when we add all of this up, we get 1 times 10 plus 0.1 times 20, which is 2, so we get 12, plus 0.10 times 0.2 times 100, which is another 2, so we get 14. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. We have, so I think we have this question and we have one more question, okay? And then we're done. That was 36, we're on slide 35 and 36. So let's see, so now we have some cache. Once again, this is like very similar to the cache time that we did. Okay. So the cache holds 2 to the power of 13 bytes. The instruction 0x880001 ACC is fetched. The cache is further set associated with a 16-byte line size. So what set does it have to, and what offset does it go to? So first of all, we need to know that how this works is we're going to have a tag, and we're going to have a set, because it's set associative. And then finally, we'll have an offset here. Right? So I think it's actually more valuable since the offset is on the right. We should probably find the offset first, actually. So to find the offset, we're going to first find the size of the offset, and then we'll find the size of the set. So we're going to do the offset first. To find the size of the offset, we're going to take log from whatever the size of the block or line is. Line is a line in the cache. Block and line are basically interchangeable. Block means it's in main memory. Line means it's in cache. But anyways, we're going to take 2 of 16. Which is equal to log 2 of 2 to the power of 4, which is equal to 4. So basically, we know that there's 4 bits in the offset field. And we notice that 4 bits is equal to 1 hex value. So basically, what we can say is we can understand that this C right here is our offset. Now, we need to find what set does it map to, and in order to find what set it maps to, we have to find the number of sets. So we need to get 2 to the 14 bytes, right? No, 2 to the power of 14 bytes. Now, what we can do is we can say 2 to the power of 14 bytes divided by 2 to the power of 4 bytes per line. It's going to give us 2 to the power of 10 lines. Then after that, we can say that we become 4-way set associative. What this means is that we have 4 lines per set. So now we can do this divided by, and this is 2 to the power of 2 lines per set. And we get 2 to the power of 8 sets, okay? And then finally we do log 2 to the power of 8, which is equal to 8 bits in the set field, right? So now that we know that there's 8 bits, and we know that there are 8 bits to the left, and 8 bits is the same thing as 2 letters, we basically have the final value for this is going to be AC in the set field. Because it's AC right here. Okay. Notice that was not an even number. That was not like a fancy 8, or like, let's say it was like a 10 or something, and we have 10 bits. We have to bring that into binary. We can't just use the hex. Okay. I think I did show up on an exam somewhere. So now we have our final question. After this, there's no more slides. So we're almost, we're okay, and it's just another cash question. Let's see. Could I turn mic off and on and off, please? Yeah, sure. Let me try that. Hopefully it hasn't been too long. All right, so I just turned the mic off and on. If it was having issues, hopefully it's a little bit better now. That was a while ago, but oh well. Anyways, we're going to continue on. So let's see, we have a cache has 2 to the 16 bytes, a line has 2 to the 4 bytes, and we get this memory address here. So we're going to first find what is the offset. So let's say the offset's always going to be the last thing, right? So because the offset's going to be the last thing, we're going to have, we're going to have some other data, and then we're going to have the offset. So we need to find the size of the offset. Find the size of the offset, we're going to do log 2, and then how many bytes a line is, so it's 2 to the 4. So we're going to have 4 bits, and that's equal to basically 1 letter, right? So we're going to say A. Okay. And then now we're going to say, what is the tag for a fully associative cache? For fully associative cache, since we know this is the offset, and a fully associative cache basically only has tag and offset. Right? We're going to say that the tag is just going to be basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the tag is just going to be like 0x4144 ACA. And I guess you don't technically include this, but basically that will be our tag in hex. If you wanted to translate that to binary, you could, but that would take a long time, so I'm not going to do it. I noticed on one of the examlets, it was actually while I was reviewing for this review, I was looking at one of the examlets, and I noticed that when I put my answer in, it was wrong when I did this. And I actually just contacted Rush and I was like, yo, why is this wrong? And it turns out that there was actually a typo in this examlet. So if you notice that you got like a low score on examlet 6, and you think that your answer is right, you might want to contact her because there was a typo on this examlet answer key, just so you guys know. Which is, yeah, it's just something I noticed and I pointed out. So keep that in mind. I think what the typo was for all these 4s, instead of 0100, it gave off 01000 as the answer. So yeah. Keep that in mind. I don't really care though, because like it dropped, whatever. It is what it is. Now, how are bits for the line in direct mapped? So what we're going to do is to find the bits for the line off or the line, we're going to say we're going to have to find a number of lines. So we're going to go 2 to 16 bytes is the total cache, and a line is 2 to 4 bytes, so it's equal to 2 to the power of 12. So we have log, so we have 2 to the power of 12 lines, right? And then we have log 2 to the power of 12 is equal to 12 bits, right? Then finally, what we're going to have to do is we're going to say in a four-way set associative, how many bits for the set? Because instead of when you have set associative, you have set your line, right? So basically what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to calculate the number of sets in a four-way set associative. So we know that we have 2 to the 12. We have 2 to the 12 lines. And in a four-way set associative, we will basically have divided by 2 to the power of 2 lines per set. And so basically what we're going to get is this is going to turn into 2 to the power of 10 sets. So then we do log 2 to the power of 10, which is equal to 10 bits per set. Sets. Okay. And that's basically it. That's the end of my presentation today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Remember, thank you. Remember to also review, I didn't go over virtual memory and also whatever we've been doing lately in class. Quite frankly, I haven't really run the lectures for that. So yeah. So make sure to read the content as well, basically is what I'm saying, because that could potentially show up on the exam. Make sure to go and probably watch like Rush's reviews and like look at the review, because that should have kind of what's on the exam. stop the recording now and try to upload the video to YouTube so you can rewatch if you need to, or for people who can make it. So see you guys.